It was supposed to be just another quiet evening in the Australian outback. A 4-year-old boy laughing, playing in the red dirt near his grandparents' home, and then he was gone. No sound, no struggle, just silence. And what started as a search turned into one of the most haunting mysteries Australia has seen in years. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're diving into the heartbreaking case of Gus Lamont, the little boy who vanished without a trace from a sheep station near Yunta, South Australia. If you've been following this story, you know how strange it's gotten. No footprints, no clothing, no clear leads, just questions and parents who still wake up every morning hoping this will be the day he's found. We're going to unpack the latest updates in the investigation, what's been confirmed, and the strange details that have kept everyone from police to experts completely baffled. Because trust me, this story is not what it first seemed. It all began on September 27, 2025. Gus was playing outside near his grandparents' property while his grandmother prepared dinner. He was seen around 5 in the afternoon, happily climbing on a dirt mound just a few meters from the house. 30 minutes later, gone. The family searched everywhere. At first, it felt like maybe he'd wandered off chasing a kangaroo or a stray dog, something a 4-year-old might do, right? But as the minutes turned into hours, panic set in.
We kindly
By nightfall, dozens of neighbors, local farmers,
privacy,
and volunteers had joined the search.
we
Within
focus
24
all our
hours, the
energy
South
on
Australia Police
supporting
declared a full-scale
the
emergency.
search and
They
working
brought in
closely with
helicopters,
the
thermal
police.
drones, search dogs,
We
even
are
soldiers from the
deeply
Australian Defence
distressed
Force.
and ask that the
The
media
terrain was brutal rocky ridges, tall
please
grass,
refrain
snakes,
from
heat that could drain
contacting
you in
us
minutes.
directly.
But for days,
Yeah,
searchers
we're
combed
into
every
about
inch.
64 hours.
And here's the
of
part
search
that
effort.
shocked everyone. Not one
Search
single
is
trace of
continuing.
Gus was found.
We
Not a
have
footprint,
got,
not a
number
scrap of
boots on the
clothing,
ground.
nothing.
We've got water operations
In the middle of all
units,
that vast,
all those
open
resources
land,
mounted.
it was like he had
So
just
we are
vanished into
actively
thin air.
searching
At
through
one
the
point,
property
hope
in the
soared. Drones picked up what looked like a small heat signature near a dam roughly 2 kilometers away. Crews rushed in, hearts pounding, thinking this might finally be him. But when they got there, nothing, just an empty patch of bushland. And that moment, that's when the tone changed. Searchers started whispering that something didn't feel right, that maybe this wasn't just a tragic accident, maybe there was more to the story. That's where hope met reality. In the middle of the desert, under that burning sun, hundreds of people stood still because there was simply nothing left to find. But if Gus didn't wander off, what really happened out there? In the next section, we'll look at the largest search operation in recent South Australian history, and why, after covering hundreds of square kilometers, not a single clue turned up. Imagine hundreds of people scouring the outback. Helicopters slicing through the sky, drones buzzing overhead, police, soldiers, farmers, even complete strangers all walking side by side through miles of dust and bushland. And after all that, nothing, not a footprint, not a shirt, not even a clue that little Gus Lamont was ever there. How does a child just disappear in open land like that? This wasn't your average missing person search. This was one of the largest operations in South Australian history, a coordinated effort involving ground teams, air units, and local volunteers working day and night. The conditions were brutal. Temperatures hit 35 degrees C, winds kicked up red dust that blinded visibility, and the terrain was scattered with sinkholes, scrub, and thick saltbush. Still, everyone pushed on, believing they'd find something. But as the days passed, that hope started to fade. Because despite covering over 500 square kilometers, searchers couldn't find a single trace of Gus. Not a toy, not a footprint, not even a sign of an animal encounter, nothing. And that's when people began to ask the question no one wanted to say out loud. Was Gus ever really lost, or was something else going on? Let's rewind a little. On day 2 of the search, drones equipped with thermal imaging flew over the property. Crews hoped heat detection would locate Gus if he was hiding, injured, or even asleep somewhere in the bush. But the drones only picked up a few kangaroos and the occasional mirage of heat bouncing off rocks. By day 4, police had already brought in the state emergency service, mounted police, and even army personnel trained for desert rescues. They checked every dam, every creek bed, every abandoned shack. And still nothing. Even the sniffer dogs, some of the best in the country, couldn't catch a scent trail. That part really rattled people. Because, even if someone walks barefoot for a few minutes, dogs can pick up traces of sweat or scent molecules. But in this case, the dogs had nothing to follow. That silence from the ground told investigators something wasn't right. After a week, authorities made the painful decision to scale back the search. They shifted from rescue to recovery. It's the moment no one wanted to hear, that unspoken admission that maybe Gus wasn't coming home. Reporters on the scene said even the most experienced rescuers looked defeated. Some described it as like searching for a ghost. And as the official search wound down, the theories began to rise. Had someone taken him? Did a car pass through that remote dirt road that evening? Or was it possible, though hard to believe, that nature had hidden every trace? What started as a hopeful rescue had turned into a national mystery. But even as official crews pulled back, the whispers didn't stop. Some locals refused to believe he simply vanished. Others swore they saw something strange that night: lights, movement, shadows where there shouldn't have been any. And that's exactly where we're heading next. You ever notice how silence can be louder than noise? That's exactly what happened in the Gus Lamont case. Because sometimes, the absence of evidence tells a story of its own. No footprints, no clothing, no trail, just empty land and questions that echo louder every day. By the second week of the search, detectives started shifting their focus. The question was no longer where Gus, but why is there nothing to find? Every search normally leaves a trace, a thread of fabric, a handprint in mud, a scent, something, but this case, it's like the outback swallowed him whole. Investigators began reviewing every piece of drone footage, every heat scan, every photo from the search zones. They were looking for the tiniest anomaly, because at this point, even a single footprint could blow the case wide open. Then came the first lead, a set of small footprints found near a dry creek bed roughly 2 kilometers from the homestead. For a moment, hope surged. But within hours it collapsed. The prints were confirmed to belong to a local volunteer's child who'd been helping earlier in the week. One step forward, two steps back. After that disappointment, investigators turned to technology. Drones continued to sweep the property, scanning hundreds of square kilometers. Searchers even used advanced software to detect irregular soil patterns, anything that might suggest a fall, an animal burrow, or even hidden objects. Still nothing. What's chilling is how clean the site remained. Not disturbed ground, not a drop of blood, not even animal tracks that might hint at a tragic encounter. You start to realize how unnatural that is. Out there, the desert doesn't hide things easily: wind, dust, birds, they leave marks. But here, it's like the environment was frozen in time. And that's when locals began whispering. If Gus didn't leave signs on the ground, maybe he never walked out there at all. That theory gained traction when investigators analyzed surveillance footage from nearby fuel stops and roadside cameras. They were hopping to see vehicles passing through during the critical window between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., the last time Gus was seen. One camera captured a white ute driving toward the property access road around 4:37 p.m. Police never publicly confirmed the driver's identity, but that single clip raised eyebrows everywhere. Because in such a remote area, that kind of traffic is rare, really rare. Was it a coincidence? Maybe. But to many, it felt like the first real clue in a sea of silence. And suddenly, a case that looked like a heartbreaking accident began to feel like something else entirely. The search left behind no physical trace, but plenty of haunting questions. If Gus didn't vanish into the desert, then where did he go? And who was behind the wheel of that white ute? In the next section, we'll unravel how misinformation, false leads, and public pressure started reshaping the entire narrative, and how one rumor nearly derailed the whole investigation. It started with a whisper, and within days that whisper became a storm. Rumors, theories, fake images, spreading faster than the truth could catch up. And honestly, that storm almost buried the real investigation into little Gus Lamont's disappearance. Because when the internet takes over a tragedy, things get dark. Not long after police called off the active ground search, social media exploded. TikTok videos, Reddit threads, AI-generated sightings, everyone suddenly had an opinion on what really happened to Gus. Some blamed the parents, some pointed to suspicious locals, others even claimed to have psychic visions. And while thousands of people meant well trying to help, trying to solve, that noise drowned out what really mattered: facts. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, investigators were quietly refocusing. They were digging into the one thing that still didn't make sense: that white ute caught on camera near the property. Police traced the vehicle to a local contractor who'd been working several stations away. He was cooperative, gave statements, and provided GPS data from his work phone. But even after being cleared, online sleuths weren't satisfied. They started spreading photos of random vehicles that looked similar, tagging innocent people and pushing wild narratives that Gus had been kidnapped, trafficked, even sold. None of it had evidence. But the clicks, oh, they kept coming. Then came the AI photo. A doctored image of a child matching Gus's description surfaced on Facebook, supposedly seen in a distant town. It went viral in hours, shared by pages claiming exclusive insider info. Police later confirmed it was fake, an image generated using AI facial blending tools. And you could just feel the frustration in the community. Real leads were being buried under digital lies. But here, what changed everything. In September 2025, the Lamont family issued a public statement, the first time they'd spoken in months. Gus's father broke down mid-sentence, saying, "We just want our boy home. Please stop spreading things that aren't true." That moment hit hard. It humanized everything again. Behind all the speculation was a devastated family still living in the middle of nowhere, waiting, hoping, and praying for one piece of real information. Police also confirmed they're still treating the case as open and active. They haven't ruled out foul play, but they haven't found proof of it either. So for now, Gus's fate remains one of Australia's most haunting modern mysteries. You know, stories like this remind us that not every mystery needs more noise, it needs empathy, truth, and patience. And somewhere out there, someone might still know something. If you've followed the story this far, don't forget, the smallest detail can make the biggest difference.